In this video, we're going to talk about the new Honda Prelude because Honda are making some very bold statements that I'm not sure I can agree with. It's going to go on sale, I do believe, later next year here in the States, and it's actually going on sale in Japan pretty soon. We're going to have a look at this design, which I think looks great. The interior maybe could have switched up a few things here. And then we're also going to have a look at these beauties right here, the generations of the Prelude. And I'm going to let you know which one is my personal favorite. But before I jump into Photoshop here and dissect this design, because we do have new photos for it right here, let's have a look at what this is all about when it comes to the spec and tech and what we know so far about this vehicle from this article from Motor1.com. I'm going to link it, of course, down below in the description. So Honda claims the new Prelude is the ideal sports car, and this is where I think things are maybe starting to go a little sideways, because to me they could have done so many things differently to turn this into a proper sports car. For example, giving it a manual transmission would be number one, but the looks definitely has the looks. So it already has been nearly 2 years since Honda revived the Prelude name with a concept car at the 2023 Tokyo Auto Salon, and now it's about to go on sale in Japan. The domestic market launch is locked in for September ahead of the sporty coupe's arrival in the US dealers in early 2026. So we're pretty close to it, maybe 6 months away from seeing it here in the States. It's also scheduled to reach Europe next year, in addition to the Asian and American markets. So apparently, the reason for building a coupe was to uncover the latent demand for an ideal sports car. Now, that is a very, very good idea. I do believe there is a massive void now for sports car enthusiasts. We don't really have a lot of options, not like we used to have back in the day, specifically from Japanese manufacturers. I want to see more sports cars like this coming out from Honda, Mazda as well. And Mazda is actually creating a rotary engine sports car, two-seater coupe, next to the Miata, and I think I'm gonna make a video on that. I just saw that article and it looks very, very cool. So as for what Honda means by ideal sports car, we believe it refers to a blend of performance and practicality. The Prelude is borrowing Civic Type R's hardware, such as the dual-axis front suspension and the Brembo front brakes, while also offering split folding rear seats, underfloor storage, and a lift gate as well. Unlike the Civic Type R and the more upscale Acura Integra, it'll be a hybrid. Not sure what I think about that. If it's gonna have a ideal sports car, maybe for Honda in 2025, this is what an ideal sports car is supposed to be. But for me, I want to have a naturally aspirated engine, maybe a turbocharged engine. I don't want to have a hybrid for a sports car. I don't want to have front-wheel drive, even though I know the Prelude has been front-wheel drive throughout these generations. I want to say rear-wheel drive and also a manual option. Its design is inspired by a glider. You can sort of see that when you look at this in a side view. Has the same, specifically the sloping roofline looks a lot like a glider, and is meant to preview other electrified performance models. Interior photos show limited space for rear passengers. The nicer two-tone theme not extending to the rear seats is an obvious sign of cost cutting. I don't care about that one bit. Does not have to do anything to do with if it's a good sports car or not. If we have black rear seats compared to the two-tone in the front, does not matter one bit to me. So we have to wait until September for the full technical specs. However, don't expect a manual transmission. To me, this would be so easy to just slap in the same transmission that we have in the Civic Type R, for example. Why not? I mean, they have the parts and they have the everything in-house already, so they could have just used that. I don't know why they didn't do that. The new Prelude will only have 2 pedals and an S Plus shift mode with paddle shifters to simulate gear changes. Now, come on, Honda. This is not the ideal sports car. This is it's a bit of a disappointment to hear that if this is what Honda considers the ideal sports car, they should have said that about the Civic Type R, if any car in their lineup today. So this is not a CVT, thankfully, because if we had a CVT in this, that would completely ruin any sporty versions or attributes of this vehicle, except for the exterior design. So there's hope for an engaging drive even without a stick shift. and with only front-wheel drive layout. The Civic Hybrid, which is probably going to be based on when it comes to the powertrain, that makes 200 horsepower, 232 pound-feet of torque, a naturally aspirated 2-liter gas engine paired with 2 electric motors. Now, there is hope the Prelude will improve on those figures, hopefully a little bit more than 200 horsepower. 230, 250, I think would be nice for this. I'm not sure what the weight is going to be, but I want to see it have a little bit more power than 200 horsepower that we have in the Civic Hybrid. Pricing will likely exceed that of the 2026 Civic Hybrid hatchback, which starts at $31,645. Now, this isn't going to be the sportiest, zappiest car that's going to be tossed into the circuits, says Honda themselves. So they say this, and at the same time, they say that this is the ideal sports car. So reports from Japan already speculate that hot Type S and even Type R versions are coming later on. So hopefully with those versions, not sure if you're going to get manuals with those. Hopefully we get manuals, maybe even all-wheel drive. I'm not entirely sure. Probably not. As a viewer of this channel, you get the best current deals and rebates on brand new wheels, tires, parts, and accessories for your vehicle at TireRack.com. Click the link in the description to learn more, and thanks for supporting the channel. But let's jump in Photoshop here and have a look at the generations of the Prelude, because you can clearly see the evolution here, that it went from boxy of the 70s and the 90s with the first generation up top. I love this styling right here. This is probably a big I think this is a big reason why I prefer older designs, because they have this boxy 3-box design. We have one box here, one box for the greenhouse, of course, and then one box for the front end right here. And what I do love about these old Japanese sports cars and limos as well is the positioning of the side mirrors sitting on the front fenders instead of, the traditional location right here. I think it looks very, very cool. If you have this one and you lower it a little bit and put some proper wheel and tires on here, it would make for a very, very cool design. Now, coming into the second generation down here, it got a little sleeker. It got a little lower to the ground, as you can see. The hood looks very flat. I'm surprised they managed to fit an engine under here, because it looks like a flat pancake in the front end. But it still has the boxy 80s three-box design that I love to see. You can see just the corners, how sharp everything is. I love to see this styling, and this is my preferred styling over, from this era, over these more rounded shapes that came later with the late 80s, early 90s, up to late 90s, the melted cheese design, which we're going to have a look at in a minute. Now, coming into the third generation down here, now this is a beautiful looking design, because you can see the trim pieces, they got a lot more smooth and integrated in the bodywork. The bumpers, for example, feel like they sit more integrated in the bodywork itself. It actually reminds me of this generation's Toyota Supra a lot. And the key thing here is that we did get pop-up headlights, which is something we did not have on any other Prelude generation except for this one. I think this is a very, very cool car still today. If you find this in a good shape, again, just slam it a little bit. Maybe not slam it, but lower it by a couple of inches. Put some nice beefy wheels and tires on there, and you have a proper cool old Japanese sports car. Now, coming into the 90s, and here you can see what I'm talking about with this more rounded organic shape. Now, this is not a bad looking design, but this is probably my least favorite Prelude when it comes to the design, because it doesn't really look like a very sporty design. Yes, it is a coupe, as you can see, but the sleekness of this and the lack of key lines in this design just makes it feel a little too soft for me. On the front end, where you have this nose, a very thin nose in the front end with the headlights going up here, it looks pretty cool. It definitely has a unique look to it. But if I were to pick between the old ones and this generation down here, I would 100% go with the old, more boxy designs that we had in the past. Now, coming in to the latest generation before the one we have today. Now, this interior, this is a perfect interior for me. And you can see that we went back to this more boxy shape that we had in the previous generations in a new take, looking very sleek and very, very sporty design. I also like this line down here because it cuts into the side view, also into the rear end, and creating one single line that wraps around the entire body. We also have a sharp shoulder line coming back as well. So this roundness that we had in the previous generation is completely gone with this generation, and the interior is peak car interiors with this generation right here. It has an absolutely beautiful looking interior, super cozy, analog gauges of course, and physical buttons and the knobs for everything that you need to adjust in the interior. I also like the standard wheels. I think this is a beautiful looking design, the previous generation Honda Prelude. So which one of these would I pick? It actually stands between two cars. It's the latest one down here, and then this third generation with the pop-up headlights. I think these two, the third generation and the latest one looks like a proper modernization of the third generation Prelude in a very, very beautiful way. Now coming into the current generation, you can see that we went back to a little bit more round shapes, but again, it still looks very, very cool, this design. It has a unique design to it, almost like a cab forward design, because if you look at the driver where he sits almost right in the 50% line of the length of the vehicle. And the front end design has to me clearly Honda design language, maybe a little bit Toyota here actually, when you have these fins sticking out. This seems to be a massive trend right now for some reason, to have these body colored fins sticking out. Ferrari is doing it, Toyota is applying it to every single model that they have. I do think this is an LED in the front end. I could be wrong there, but I do like the intake right here, and that we have a clear separation of the bumper right here with the top end graphics, lower half graphics separated with two parallel lines that builds up the bumper in the front end. I also love this chisel line that we have going up on the hood into the windshield right there. And this is, I do believe this is an LED, the full LED light bar that we have in the front end, looking very cool. The overall graphics in the front end, super chiseled, and I also like to see that they did not make any weird bumper headlights down here for this car. This looks like a good modernization of the older generations of the Prelude in a modern way. So looking at the side view here, the side view is where it gets a little bit tricky, because it has a very, very unique side profile with this cab forward design, meaning that the greenhouse sitting very, very far forward in this case. But if we draw the A-pillar down, you can see that it almost connects to the center point of the front end axle. That is what we want to see. And then we have this line cutting in from the front bumper, dipping down in the side view all the way down here. It doesn't really have a connection to the rear end, which is totally fine. I do like the rear end graphics here, how this creates a bit of a send-off in the rear end. And the greenhouse looks great as well. Very sleek, very, very sporty design. Very upright A-pillar as well. Could maybe shrink this down a little bit and push it down a little bit in this corner right here to make it even sleeker going backwards. But looking at the side profile, they say it's inspired by a glider. You can see that because all the volumes or long lines that we have stretching out in the back, almost creating this airplane design. We do have black wheels in this case, but I've seen some photos of this that you can actually spec it and not have the black wheels, which is very, very nice to see in today's world. Here you can actually see the non-black wheels. You have some silver in these spokes right here, looking beautiful. Now the rear end is going to be my favorite view for this. I really, really like what's going on here. It's a very clean, very simplistic looking design, while still having some key features with the light bar. You have Honda spelled out here. Of course, light bar coming back, also massive trend of the last 5 years. We have a spoiler up top. Not sure if this is an option or if it's standard equipment to have the spoiler up top. And look at this beautiful chamfer right here, going down and wrapping around the big diffuser, which sticks up very high up in the rear end, which creates this sporty look because this removes a lot of the mass in the rear. That is what we want to have. We don't want to have it be sticking up too far in the front end. You can see that the black graphics in the front sits way lower down than it does in the rear end, and that is what we want to see. It creates a forward movement in the side profile as well. You can see just how far up it sticks up here compared to the front end graphics right there, giving it this forward motion when you look at it from a side view. Beautiful design from a rear end. Now looking at the interior here, and this is where I think this looks a little too a little too generic Honda for me. Like every other Honda vehicle, I was never a fan of this type of gear selector that we have in Honda vehicles today. This is one of the worst gear selectors, in my opinion, in production today. And I would much rather, of course, have a manual transmission for this vehicle. It just makes sense. But thankfully, we still have dials and toggles and buttons for all the important features here, such as the climate settings right here. We have a decently sized infotainment screen. I don't like the integration of this. I would much rather have it sit a lot lower, somewhere here, and maybe in a more widescreen format like this, and move the air vents, maybe to have the air vents up here, something like this. That would be my preferred solution or layout for this. But good news, again, we have a housing for the gauge cluster. We have a small screen in here sitting deep within the dash, and the steering wheel looks to be taken straight from the Honda Civic, if I'm not mistaken. It looks like the exact same steering wheel right there. So I'm very excited about this vehicle. The first iteration with a hybrid setup, probably not going to be the most exciting vehicle to drive, and I honestly can't see how this is going to be an ideal sports car, because it feels like it's not going to be a very sporty vehicle to drive with this simulated gears and all of this. But then they say they have a Type S and a Type R coming later on down the line, and I hope that will rectify those issues that I do believe the first iteration of the Prelude is going to have.